In today's episode of BrainWashed, we're washing our brains of mediocrity because you are made on purpose for a purpose. And really, that purpose, it's not that hard. It's just to live life to its fullest, to experience heaven on earth. Yet, many of us, we just kind of stay complacent, we stay stuck, but you don't have to. What's up, everybody? My name is Clint Zeller, and you may have noticed, if you watched this show before, that the background has changed. And normally I sit in my living room, but I have two sick kids, a dog and a cat running around, and we just got back from a trip, and there's clothes all over the place. So I snuck out to the camper, and I kind of like it. The only issue is that I had the AC running, but it's super loud, so I had to turn it off. So if you start to see sweat pouring off my face 15 minutes into this, I apologize in advance because we live in Houston and it's hot outside. But hopefully we could get through this without anything crazy like that happening. But anyway, like I said, we're watching our brains of mediocrity today. And it's really just bringing to the forefront things you probably already know, but we need to look at our lives, be honest with ourselves and say, is this all there is to life? Because I'm not trying to assume that you have the worst life ever. You might have a very good life. You might be pretty happy with where you are, with your job, with your living situation or your family, the relationships. You might be pretty good in those areas, but there's always room for improvement, right? And so we need to just start to consciously be aware of what's going on. And if things aren't exactly where you want it to be, maybe it's time for a change. Maybe it's time to renew your mind or to wash your brain of life as usual. And it's just coming to this place where you know that you're made on purpose for a purpose. And I think in the church or in spiritual circles, when we think of purpose, it's like, I got to go be a missionary or go start a church or have this worldwide ministry or go pray for people in the park. And okay, maybe that's something that you could do, but I think it's a lot simpler than that. You just look at your life and ask yourself, am I happy? Am I finding fulfillment in what I'm doing? Because I know so many people out there that make good money, they have all the nice things, but they're not really happy. They're not fulfilled. And the American dream, what it says is to go to school, go to college so you can get a good paying job, and then you can make lots of money so you can buy a house and get nice things. And that's what people have always done or have at least attempted to do. And yet the antidepressants and anti-anxiety medications in this country are, everybody's on them, it seems. And so clearly this American dream is something we need to wake up from and say, maybe my version of an abundant life or my version of prosperity looks different than what the American dream says. And maybe for you, it is extravagant living, but maybe for someone like me, it's simple. It's minimalism. I try to be a minimalist, but I'm married to somebody who's not totally on board with that. So that's why I'm stuck in a camper today, because we have stuff all over the place. But that's a conversation for, actually, it's not a conversation I'm ever going to have, but it's just something, my point is, if we could just get over this idea of what society says abundance is supposed to look like, or prosperity is supposed to look like, and really do some inward searching, talk to God about, what is it? What's going to bring me more fulfillment? And I had this whole series, the series that I'm going to start today. I taught it at the church that we used to have. And I had so many people just wake up to this idea that maybe the direction I've been going my entire life, or thinking the stuff that I thought would bring me happiness and fulfillment, I don't even want it anymore. I think it's so crazy that we expect these kids graduating high school. I just went up to Missouri. My nephew graduated high school and we had this big family reunion, and my wife's family is like 7,000 people. It's just this massive family. And we're all up there hanging out and having a good time, and everyone's asking him, so what's next? What are you going to do? What are you going to do? And he has a plan. He wants to be a high school football coach and a gym teacher and all that, and it's a really good plan. But to put all this pressure on an 18-year-old kid to figure out what he's going to do the rest of his life, he could live 80 more years and he's got to stick with this decision. Or maybe he does it for a while and eventually doesn't want to do it anymore. Or, so many of us, we stick with a career we're not happy with because that's the degree we got. And when I taught this at the church, I had people that went to college to do whatever, and they realized it's not even what they really wanted. And finally, listening to a message like that, someone gave them permission to do a 180 and do something different. Not me necessarily saying like, okay, I give you permission, but sometimes you have to give yourself permission to change everything, disrupt life as usual. And that's an exciting place to be. I mean, you have one life, YOLO. Am I right? YOLO. You only live once. This is a gift that you've been given, this life. What are you doing with it? How are you stewarding it? How are you managing this gift that you've been given? By running the rat race and working at a job you hate to buy things you don't need to impress people you don't like? Or are you going to be willing to break free from all of it and say, maybe it's something different for me? And maybe that works for my neighbor or my friend or my cousin or whoever, but it doesn't work for me. I want something different. So I can't tell you what prosperity looks like, and I can't tell you what an abundant life looks like for you. That's between you and God. But today I want to start just thinking about that and saying enough is enough. In Ephesians 3, I absolutely love this verse. It's in the Amplified. It says, now to him, by in consequence of the action of his power that is at work within us. Remember, you are in him. He's in you. You're the temple of the Holy Spirit. There's no separation here. It's not like God's off in heaven somewhere. This old, angry white man with a big white beard sitting in a big white throne with a big white lightning bolt ready to zap you to get you on course, because your calling and your purpose is just this razor thin idea that you have to, and if you step out of it, zap this way, here's a little poverty, you're going to lose your job over here or get a little cancer over here. It's God is within us. His work is, and his power is at work within us. So it's you and him working together. It says, is able to carry out his purpose and do super abundantly, far over and above all that we dare ask or think, infinitely beyond our highest prayers, desires, thoughts, hopes, or dreams. That is powerful. That means if you can pray for it, God has something infinitely beyond that. If you desire it, if you think it, if you have a hope or a dream, God has something that's infinitely beyond that. So what does that mean? Start dreaming and dream big, because God has something that's infinitely beyond anything that this little brain up here could ever conjure up. And that's exciting. That's a good place to be. That means you can step out into something and do things that you never thought possible, because you're not alone in this. You're not alone in this life. You have the creator of the universe dwelling on the inside of you. You're the temple of the Holy Spirit, the dwelling place of God Almighty. And we're barely getting by. We're getting mad at work and coming home and kicking the dog because we're so frustrated. I hope you're not really doing that. But what are we doing? If this is true, what I just read, if that's true, then why are we living life as usual? There's so much more to life than that. And if you think it's not possible, well, I have good news for you, because Jesus looked at them and he said, with men, this is impossible, but with God, all things are possible. I used to think of that. Well, okay, with God, all things are possible. I didn't think with God. I thought for God. Like he's pretty powerful, right? So God can do anything. Nothing's impossible for God. But it doesn't say that. It says with God, all things are possible. And the good news is you're with God. He's with you. And so when you have this scary idea to go start a business or to sell everything and go buy an RV and travel the country instead of being stuck in one place, I say that because that's my own personal desire. I'm working on the wife. I want to sell it all. This camper's too small. So go get a fifth wheel or something. I don't know. I don't know that stuff, but just start traveling the country and live adventure. That's what I want. But when you have that idea, it's like, why? If I can think it, it's a desire that I have, I'm going for it. You have to sit back and say, is this God or is it me? And if it's just me, then what if I'm wrong? What if I miss it? And now God's out of the picture. No, with God, all things are possible. So let's say you step out and you do something crazy. You sell everything and you buy an RV and you start traveling places and this, oh man, that wasn't it. Okay, do something else. We act like this next decision that we're making is the end all be all. No, with God, you and God, all things are possible. So if you go and you think you wanted the thing, and now the thing isn't the thing you actually want anymore, do something different. If the degree that you have is in teaching, but now you want to go start a different business, go start a different business. Don't continue with a mistake because it took you a long time making that mistake. And you spend a lot of money on that degree or that business idea or whatever it might be. If that's not it, change it up and do something different. And it's scary, but it's exciting. And I think that's what the point of life is to try different things and find different ways to find true fulfillment and live heaven on earth. What if we all live lives like that? How different would things look rather than same old, living the American dream? The American dream for a lot of people is a nightmare. I read a quote from Albert Einstein. It says, imagination is everything. It's the preview of life's coming attractions. So it's like before a movie, they play the coming attractions, the trailers of these movies. And if it's a good trailer, it doesn't give away the entire plot. It gives you just enough to get you excited about that movie. And then you go buy a ticket and you go have the full experience later on. But the coming attraction is just to stir things up and cause action. And that's what happens whenever we have this desire that comes up on the inside of us. It's this idea in our thoughts and in our imagination. We have it. We're not getting the full picture. You don't get that until you start stepping out. But as you start dreaming, it's this coming attraction. It's a preview of what's to come. And as you start to dream and you give yourself permission to dream, it should make you want to live out the entire experience. What you see in here is the coming attraction of what's coming out here. Proverbs 29 says, where there's no vision, the people perish. This vision on the inside of you, this desire that you have, as you start to delight yourself in the Lord, you start to get this picture in here. And as you see it in here, you start to see it out there. As it becomes real to you in here, you'll start to act on it and it becomes real out here. It's a coming attraction in here, but this is the experience. This is heaven on earth. This is the life that you're meant to live, acting on those desires. But people are so afraid of missing God that they never do anything. They're living in fear rather than looking at life as an opportunity to experience more of what God has for you. And what does God have for you? I can't tell you exactly, but I can tell you it's going to be awesome. And it's going to be more than you could ever ask, dream, or imagine, or pray for, or conjure up in your mind. It's something great. And that gets me excited. It makes me start to look at my life and say, is there more to this? Is there more to life? And the answer to that question is yes, there's always more to this life. So let's do it. That's the whole point of this thing. That's exciting. And kingdom life isn't just, oh, what does God want me to do? What does God want me to do? And we're going to pray and look for a sign and wait for God to open a door or whatever. No, kingdom life isn't just what God wants you to do. It's what you want to do. So if you want to do something, do it. Quit waiting for a sign. Step out and try it. And if you fail, hey, you learned something. Sometimes you win, sometimes you learn. But you're not going to fail. You might redirect. You might have to make some different decisions, but man, don't you know who you are? Don't you know how powerful you are? Don't you know who is living this life with you? So start talking to him. Start involving God in this whole situation, this whole thought process. And that desire is either going to intensify or it's going to diminish. But if it intensifies, now it's up to you to act on it. Do something, put your hand to something, because it's not going to happen automatically. But so many people just stay stuck. And they live in poverty when they don't have to. They live in depression when they don't have to. You live in a stress and anxiety and you don't have to. Start doing things now to get yourself out of those situations. Maybe if it's stress or anxiety or depression, maybe for a while we talk to a therapist or take some medication to get over it, but know that God has created you for something more than what you're going through right now, and you don't have to stay there. And even if you decide to take medication, you don't have to take it for the rest of your life. None of this is a life sentence. None of the situations that you're in right now have to be a life sentence. But you have to make a decision that enough is enough. Because life and death are set before you. Which one are you going to choose? It's like you're at a fork in the road, and there's life and life more abundantly, and death and destruction over here. And the thing is, he says, life and death are set before you. Choose life, which leads me to think that if I'm not actively choosing life and life more abundantly, not having a vision causes you to default to death. And there's no life there, obviously. There's no life there. We have to be intentional. Do you know what you want to do next? Do you have an idea of what your dream life would look like? I'm not saying if you had $50 million and all the money in the world. I'm not saying that. I'm saying, what would your life look like? What would your family life look like? What would your home look like? Do you want a house of peace or stress? Do you want your relationships to be loving, or do you want to have to walk on eggshells around everybody that you're around? What are we doing? You have to have a vision for your future. It's like a roadmap. You don't just get in your car. Oh, I guess we don't have roadmaps anymore. I should change my whole approach to this, but I mean, it is 2024. We've had GPSs and smartphones for quite a while, but back in my day, because I'm an old man now, back in my day, if you wanted to go somewhere, you get the old map out or the atlas. I had a book, it was a spiral notebook thing I kept in the back of the driver's seat, or no, passenger seat, so I could reach it. Anyway, I would get it and I'd look at it and I'd have to highlight the route. I didn't if I was going from Houston up to Kansas City, I don't know how to get there. I'd have to map out the journey. That's having a vision for your future. So you start to plan those things. Whenever we were first starting our church, I had this desire come up on the inside of me. And I said, I talked to my wife about it, and it's a whole long story, but eventually she was on board with that as well. And we didn't even tell anybody about it. Maybe one or two real close people, but we didn't tell many people about it. But we sat down and we started writing out, what do we want this to look like? What is it going to take to make this happen? This is before we ever actually did anything, but we had a vision, and we started to write those things down, and we started to move toward that vision, that dream that was on the inside of us. So we had to decide that the life that we were living wasn't the life that we wanted to live anymore. Make a decision. Have a vision for your future. I just thought of that. Decision and vision rhyme, and that's cool. If you haven't noticed, I like when things rhyme. But throughout the next few episodes, this is what we're going to talk about. And today's decide to change. And we're going to go through the word dream, DREAM. Today is decide. Decide that you want your life to go in a different direction. Have a vision for your future, because where there's no vision, the people perish. And unfortunately, a lot of people are perishing because they have no vision. And maybe from the outside looking in, they look like they have it all together. But the reality is they're just coasting. They're not doing anything. And you can only coast uphill for so long. Maybe momentum carries you for a little while, but then it stops. And you start to roll back downhill. You're either going uphill or you're falling back downhill, but you're never really plateauing. Make a conscious decision right now that you're going to start moving toward your goal. And all you have to do is right here. It's all within you. So just, I'm not saying right this second you have to go quit your job and or sell everything or whatever it is you want to do. I'm not saying that. I'm saying right now, just make an inward decision and maybe find one or two people that are close to you and share it and have that conversation with them. But you have to be intentional. In Matthew 7, it says, ask and it will be given to you. Seek and you will find. Knock and it will be open to you. For everyone who asks receives, and he who seeks finds, and to him who knocks it will be opened. Or what man is there among you, if a son asks for bread, will give him a stone? Or if he asks for a fish, will give him a serpent? If you then, being evil, that just means morally corrupt, know how to give good things to your children, how much more will your Father in heaven give good things to those who ask him? It takes a conscious decision to ask. It takes a conscious decision to seek. It takes a conscious decision to knock. You have to intentionally do these things. And there's this expectation that comes with it because you are powerful. You have the creator of the universe on the inside of you. The power that raised Christ from the dead dwells in you. The fullness of the Godhead dwells in you. So whenever you're asking or seeking and knocking, there's an expectation that goes with that. And you're going to get your answer. You're either going to be more excited about the things you're asking for, or you're going to be less excited. And if you're less excited, find something else to dream about. But so few people do this. Most people are coasting through life. And that's what this passage continues to say. I think this part of the passage has been incredibly abused, but he goes on to say, enter by the narrow gate. For wide is the gate and broad is the way that leads to destruction. And there are so many who go in by it. Because narrow is the gate and difficult is the way which leads to, and there are few who find it. I always heard this verse that there's this narrow gate and just a few people are getting to heaven. And then there's this wide gate. And I just imagine people walking through it and falling off into the pits of hell forever. But let's look at the context here. He just got done saying, ask and seek and knock. And if you being evil know how to give good gifts to your kids, and then how much more will God give it to you? Time out. Now we're going to talk about a lot of people going to hell forever. And then we're going to come back into the story again. That's not what it's saying at all. He's saying dream, be intentional. Ask, seek, knock, because so few people take this route because it's difficult. It's difficult to break free of the norms of society and not fit into society without even thinking. Those are difficult things, and it's scary because maybe no one in your circle has ever done it before, but it's worth it. Will it be difficult? Yes, but will it be worth it? Absolutely. So go through the narrow gate that so few people go through. Taking verses like this and saying this is talking about eternal consequences is robbing us of this idea that we're capable of experiencing life and life more abundantly. This isn't a passage that's saying that we have to, that God is losing and just a few people are going through the narrow way, but billions and billions of people are going to go burn in hell forever. That doesn't make any sense. God doesn't lose in the end. Love always wins. But how much of that love are we going to experience in this life? How much of heaven are we going to experience? It's all around us. It's in us and through us. And his love makes up everything. But we're so blinded because we're just fitting into society without even thinking. And we're just working at a job to pay the bills and just this grind. Don't you think there's more to it than that? In a world that's chasing things that don't matter, don't go the same direction as them. Choose life. Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct your paths. Do you believe the things that you say you believe? Because most people say, I'm the temple of the Holy Spirit. And most people believe that God is everywhere. Why aren't we acting like that's true? Why don't we act like we're as powerful as we say we are? You are created for heaven on earth. You're created for more than what you might be going through right now. But just be willing to dream, dare to dream, and make a decision today that I don't know what it is yet, but I'm going to start. I'm going to start the process. I'm going to start asking God, what's next? Isn't there more than what I'm going through now? It doesn't have to be a big career move or moving houses or any of that. Maybe it's relationships. Maybe there's people in your life that are holding you back. Maybe it's time to let some people go. Maybe it's time to make some difficult decisions. Will it be difficult? Yeah, I'm not going to tell you it's not going to be difficult, but it will be worth it. I promise you. Don't you want something different? I like that story in John 5 where there's a man who was paralyzed or had an infirmity for 38 years. And Jesus asks him, "Do you want to be made well?" You think the obvious answer would be like, well, yeah, I've been paralyzed my entire life. Yeah, I want to be made well. Of course. Who wouldn't? But there's a reason why Jesus asks, "Do you want to be made well?" Because we have to make a decision. We have to acknowledge that change needs to take place before any change is going to take place. We have to wake up and say, "I'm ready." Yes. Don't wrap your identity in the life that you have, whether it's a lower income or pain in your body or depression and anxiety. Don't wrap your identity in those things. Say, do I want to change? Yes, I want to change. The answer is always going to be yes. So start today. Do you want something different? Do you want a different career path? Do you want to live in a different place? Do you want better relationships? What do you want out of life? Decide today that it's time for a change.